Our next speaker, Dr. Vanessa Anseloni, who will talk about love and the human brain. Dr. Anseloni is a neuroscientist, psychologist, and assistant professor at the University of Maryland. She's a fifth-generation Spiritist. Dr. Anseloni is the founder and former president of the Spirit Society of Baltimore. She has also founded and is the current president of the Spirit Society of Virginia. Vanessa Anseloni is a Spiritist medium, fraternal counselor, and coordinates spiritual treatments and workshops in the U.S. and worldwide. She is also the co-author of the book, The New Generation, with Givaldo Franco, and the editor-in-chief of the Spiritist magazine. Dr. Anseloni is the founder of Cardiac Radio. And with that, please, Dr. Anseloni. Thank you.
Is it good? And all right. Good afternoon, everyone. When I hear all of it, reminds me something that I often play with my daughter Virginia. It's like, what is that sound? What is that sound? Because when we talk about feelings and love, we're talking about vibrations. And the question is, do you feel the love in the air? Yes or no? For some, for everybody. Yes or no? Yes. Is love in the air? Yeah, love is in the air. Love is in the air because we are made of love. And it's very interesting because when we talk about love, it reminds me of a passage with Jesus. Some people who are not familiar with Spiritism often ask us about why do we talk so much about Jesus? Because when Kardec asked the question, if God sent a guiding model on the earth, the answer was simply Jesus. And it's not because they said so, it's because it makes sense. Meaning reasoning? Yes, Kardec actually states that when we use reasoning to work our faith, it's unshakable. But then comes another puzzling feeling for us. Something that lately many people have been asking ourselves in our centers and elsewhere. So where is feeling in this reasoned faith? It was kind of the same question that Nicodemus asked Jesus. Nicodemus was this doctor of the law, reputable, respected, and very diligent in his studies and his own religious profession, if we may say this way. So he really admired Jesus. He recognized that Jesus was the Messiah, but he was still conflicted. And he came actually, and you can read this in chapter 14 of the book Boa Nova, which is already in English, coming pretty soon in Portuguese. But chapter 14, there is a moment in which, like ourselves, Nicodemus asked Jesus, I have read it all, Master. We all know you have come from God, and I have been applying my whole existence in interpreting the law. But I'd like your word to let me know how I will actually know the kingdom of God. And when we talk about the kingdom of God, we're talking about this feeling of love inside of us, indestructible. What did Jesus reply to him? The Master, and we love Jesus' emotional body language. He was, and he still is, but here as a human, in the human body, he showed to us the ultimate coherence, walking his talk. We cannot be Spiritists by theory. We come here to talk, but we are also making efforts. Kardec said the true Spiritist is not the one who is perfect, thank God, but the one who makes efforts to improve himself, to tame the bad tendencies. And how can I tell if you are doing it? It's very subjective. I can never tell it, but about myself. And Jesus so coherently smiled with kindness and clarified. First of all, Nicodemus, it's not enough to have lived your life interpreting the law. No matter how many courses we do in Spiritism, no matter how many books we read, or write, or translate, or revise, what is the missing link? Jesus replies very clearly to us. Before reasoning about the dispositions of the law, you should have felt the scriptures. We missed it. It's been 2,000 years, and the main problems in humanity are still because we are interpreting the law, but we're not feeling it. We're not feeling it. Because when we start feeling it, words are not enough. We learn from science that more than 70% of what we exchange with others in regards to our emotions occur without words. When we think of Jesus as the model and guide, how does he look like to you? A talking master? A chatterbox? Do this, don't do that. Almost like a policeman at a crossroad, right? No. Is he smiling? Is he kind? Is he exuding compassion? What is it? How do we pick it up? From the beginning of this symposium, we got that it's all about perception, Luis Lima said to us very clearly. But where is it? How do we break it down? So if it's not about reasoning alone, if it's about feeling, how do we feel it? How do we feel it? We cannot teach love, but we can feel love. And we can pick up on people's loving vibrations without words. Many people ask, I need to reconcile with this person. What do I do? What do I tell them? Feel it first. Everything else is just going to unfold. Because we will manifest it. How does it happen? How do we walk this march? We need to understand better the composition about ourselves. Because when Kardec asked the spirits in the Spirit's book, how can I progress more surely and avoid wrongdoings? And the answer was quite clear to us, self-knowledge. But who are we? Question to all of us here. Where are you right now? Where are you right now? Virginia's laughing. I know she's there. But where are you right now? Seriously, what would be your answer to this question? Where are you? Are you seated on this chair? You are? Again. What is seated on this chair? Not us. What do the spirits tell us through Kardec? That we are spirits, and people say, will I go back to the spiritual realm? You belong to the spiritual realm. We've never left the spiritual realm. What is the difference then between us and the other spirits that are not incarnated? What is the difference? The physical body? But don't they have a body too? A spiritual one? A perispirit? That's the name. That's why Kardec doesn't reinvent the wheel, but he's a precise educator. And as a good educator, we are careful about words. And he was so careful that he taught us, the name of this spiritual body shall be perispirit, because it envelops the spirit. Peri envelops the spirit. And this perispirit is connected molecule by molecule to the physical body, but we are not necessarily inside the body. Can we picture it like the puppets? Dun, 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 dun. Now, feel yourself. It's not knowledge, it's feeling. Feel it. This body that is standing here, or this one that is seated, is not us. How do we feel it? Help with breathing consciously. Dr. Herbert Benson from Harvard University has already defined it. It's about breathing to create mindfulness. So, breathing in through the nose and inhaling, inflating the lower abdomen, and breathing out slowly. Breathing in and out. Now, I feel my body, not me. Every morning, who am I looking in the mirror? My body, not me. No? Am I a vampire then? Can I not see myself in the mirror? Well, the concept of vampire and spirit is a totally different concept. You can read in the book Liberation, but that's not the case for now. But we have the books over there. The important thing is feel that we are more than the physical body. Otherwise, we're going to miss the most important thing in an incarnation, being incarnated. Being incarnated. When we talk about questions of ecology, of taking care of the environment, it begins with self-love. And self-love is about taking care of the physical body. And it doesn't mean to be skinny as a top model. And being overweight is not a crime either. And doesn't mean we love ourselves less. No. Because the relationship between the spirit and the physical body is more complex than this linear thinking. There are many people who are in the business of being a top model and not necessarily are happy because of their apparent beauty. André Louis shows it to us quite clearly. That one night, this beautiful woman, she was sleeping, and he saw her, the spirit, emancipating, expanding its ties from the physical body, the perispirit, and she looked like a witch. So who are we? We are not the physical body. That's the most important thing. Our brain needs to get to know of it. We still don't know it. For the brain, whatever we imagine or whatever is happening is real. The same. So we need to teach ourselves, like Chico Xavier already learned, and Divaldo Franco. Did you observe that when you see Divaldo Franco or the Dalai Lama for others, or the Thich Nhat Hanh, the greatest Buddhist monk that got the Nobel Prize, the Vietnamese monk, when you see them, all the movements are measured. They already feel that they are commanding a body and they are not the body. So when I sit to eat something, I know I'm not eating, I'm feeding my body. The perspective changes. When I'm having sex, who is having sex? No, it's a needed conversation. In Spiritism, we don't skip it. There's a whole book, Sex and Destiny. Who is having sex? Who needs it? That's probably a topic for another symposium. I don't know. But because very complex, very deep. But we know that if we are using the physical body, it's not only us. There are, as Luis Lima reminded us, these little animals, domesticated, that Andre Luis says in this beautiful book, Evolution into Worlds, that we're commanding to achieve a certain goal. And what is it? What is it that we're willing to achieve? The main problem for the physical brain, the spiritual brain, the soul that is incarnated, and the soul that is discarnated, and they are majority in this symposium, as always, they are majority on the earth. The problem is lack of love. What if we are not loved? Can that really create an impression on us? This year, we've got to know that we have the highest rise on suicide rates in the United States. Why? What is happening to us? What do we lack? If we take a look at what neuroscience can tell us, it's very extreme. But a child was 3 years old and experienced extreme neglect, had a brain that was shrinked, to say the least, compared to a child of the same age who received attention. All the other elements that would probably characterize love. This child grows up and shows in its behavior. Of course, the neural pathways are changed. Talking to them a minute or two or bringing them to psychologists is going to change their brains overnight? No. But is there hope? Yes. But it's a lot of work. A lot of work. One thing we know, the lack of love can dramatically change the pathways of processing everything that we feel and think through the nervous system. It changes. Everything from the perspective of science, not thinking about the spirit or the soul. There is not a consensus yet in science. Believe it or not, even neuroscience doesn't come to a conclusion, doesn't even go there. That's the reality. If you ask, they're like, we don't ask these questions here. It's not a question that pertains to that field of study. It's one of the hardest topics in neuroscience is consciousness. So imagine something beyond it, forget about it. So we know that thoughts and feelings are changing the physiology. That's all that science agrees upon. Even doing the relaxation breathing that we did here, if we do it consistently every day for 8 weeks, Dr. Herbert Benson says it changes our gene expression to the positive, to a healthier outcome. We're going to learn that whatever we feel is going to change our, let's say, physical Play-Doh. It's like a clay. Our child comes to us, and parents are focusing in their college years, forgetting that the first years of life are the most important ones. And some parents say, you know, I don't have too much time for them, but you know, the little I can spend with them, I give my best. Okay. If they're doing well with that little of our attention, imagine how would they do if you spent more of your time. So it's priceless. Priceless, the changes we make in our lives to really fulfill our duty as parents. And St. Augustine says in chapter 14 of the Gospel according to Spiritism, the mission of parents is not hard. St. Augustine, did you have a child to say so? But anyhow, he knew best because he was like in the spirit realm at the time. It's like beyond just St. Augustine. It's the spirit, the immortal spirit, the wisdom. So he says it's not hard, and we don't need a degree or the intelligence of a genius to it, because the mission of parents is to connect that child to God, period. And it's not like a friend of mine was saying, but I'm scared of the teenage years, Vanessa, and me too in a way. But we have to help out. That's why we just created Cardiac Radio for Teens this past week. We have a space for teenagers at Cardiac Radio, worldwide, so they can be listened. They can also talk to other teenagers. They have their space of spirituality, of nourishment. But they said to me, these friends, I'm afraid because I've seen good parents and their kids becoming so hectic and crazy. I said, what do you mean good parents? They were loving. What kind of loving? There are many different types of love. Loving like what? No, they talked about God. What kind of God? This God that we say is in the churches, in the temples, in the Spiritist centers, but then in my daily life, if my child comes and says, can I sip on your juice? Like, no, that's mine. I see parents doing this to their children. Is that love? Get yours. This is my computer. Parents telling their children. And then when they become teenagers and do the same, no, this is my space. We find it strange. Who taught them? We wonder. It's like this parent who was a Spiritist. He had a daughter who was in the preteen years, and she said, I want a bike. And he said, you know, we're not going to buy it now. We need to find a good price. And then she heard that the neighbor had a good bike. He was selling. He needed the money. So she came to the father and Father, there is a good bike over there, and the price is good. And, you know, by the way, they need the money. This father is walking his talk as a Spiritist. He looked at her as a good gardener. A good gardener is not only that gives the water, right sunlight, minerals in the soil, loving, but he also trims, disciplines, educates. he turned to her and said, I'm going to teach you something. You never, ever take advantage of somebody else's needs. You want the bike, he needs the money. We're going to help him. Not buying for less, but giving him the right amount. How many parents would do this? We're molding the brains of the children, but most of all, we're molding our own brains. The different types of love that science shows to us, and I'm not going to go through this with great detail, but just to show to us that different types of love, the attachment part of it, releases molecules like oxytocin, vasopressin, which is particular to this feeling of attachment. It's not a bad thing. It's important to feel like I belong. I'm attached to my parents, to the people whom I love. The feeling of attraction and the laws of appetite and sleep, similarly, they will play with different neural molecules like dopamine, norepinephrine, serotonin, and other types of nerve growth factors. The feeling of lust. Many people think that romantic love is all that is, but it's one type of it. It releases different molecules that are strongly correlated with our sexual arousal, testosterone, estrogen. Why we're saying this? To memorize the names? No. To know that everything we do, feel, think, and say is changing something here. Look at this picture. We don't want to go through the details, but it shows the difference when we're doing imaging studies of two different types of love, maternal love and romantic love. There are some areas of the brain in which we're going to see some type of overlap. Okay? It doesn't matter now for us the names, but one thing we're going to know, they overlap in some areas, but they are unique in the activation of other areas. Science is to date thinking about what it all means. But we Spiritists, we already know. We already know that they are different parts of the one day sublime love that we will achieve. They are rehearsals to achieve this ultimate love, the sublime love that, for example, Jesus felt and feels for us. He had its maternal, paternal features, but it's beyond it. It's not limited. What does it mean to us? It means the following. André Louis says in Evolution in Two Worlds, quite clearly in a chapter named Evolution and the Brain, that the brain is the nest of the mind. So if my brain, the spiritual, in the perispirit, and the physical brain is the nest of my mind, of what I think, of what I create with God, the co-creation and everything else, what shall I do? Take a new perspective in life. And he says the goal for us in the last paragraph of this chapter, which is very dense, but we'll break it down in this way. He says that the spirit will find in the brain the room of command of its own energies. So if we want, as we say, to command wisely this body into this reincarnation, that's the number one goal. To command well, to have self-love, self-respect, self-nourishment. I need to know how to nurture myself. How many people have problems because they didn't receive love? They feel they cannot give love to themselves. We are all learning it. But we are learning, and we need to go straight to the commanding room, which is the brain, and know how it works. So we can start feeling. More than knowing is feeling. And he says the goal, his last statement is, so we can, through responsibility and free will, manifest in space and time our own pathway of ascension to God. How are we going to do this journey if I look at my hand and I don't know how to caress it? If I look at my body, no matter how limited it is, and I don't appreciate it? Try it now. Would you mind? Would you mind? It's an exercise. Feelings, words cannot suffice. Look at your hand. Pick up your hand from your other hand. Feel like it's not you, it's your body. Bless the body that is allowing us to be here now. Do you like your hand? You do? If you don't feel guilty. It's gonna make it worse. Guilt doesn't help. Right? Some people feel guilty for feeling guilty and angry at being angry. It doesn't help. Let's look at our hand and say, what a blessing. And if we don't have hands, arms, let us give ourselves a hug. Feel it. The body. Thank you, body. Thank you for allowing me to be here. Little cells, little pets. I'm so sorry. Many times I've enslaved you, doing what I wanted without listening to your needs. How often we sleep less because we have to work more. We don't eat well and eat junk food because we don't have time. But time is something we make. So we look at the physical body that is renewing itself as we speak. Thank you. And when we hold right here, science tells us that when we are using our hands to caress, we always think about caressing others, but it begins with us. We caress ourselves. We give this love to the physical body. We are releasing molecules that are relaxing, that are joy, that bring joy to us, like endorphins, not only, but mostly. When we are here together, getting to know one another, exchanging sometimes a smile, looking at one another, we feel this attachment. We feel that we belong here. Oxytocins are freed. The worst thing is neglect. People are committing suicide because we're not paying attention. But we barely pay attention to ourselves. To looking at ourselves in the mirror and saying, body, you're doing great, because the life I lead You were supposed to be buried a long time ago. And you're still here, very resilient. Good job. But I'll make it up to you. Today we're going to sleep early. Okay? And like a pet saying, go to bed. Some people say, I have problems sleeping. Think of your body as a pet. Let's go to sleep, lay down, breathe in and out. We need to develop this relationship with the physical body from a higher self, as an immortal spirit, and start observing our movements from the perspective of somebody who's using a blessed instrument. When diseases happen, it's part of the learning. People feel guilty because they are ill, and that doesn't make sense. Diseases come to teach. Let me learn the lesson. As a good student and as a teacher, we love good students. They sit in the first row, not necessarily here because here's a different environment, right? We have good students. See, Susanna is right there. She's a wonderful student. She became a professor, so I assume she's a wonderful student too. But all of us, good students mean we apply ourselves. We need to observe. And the first thing we can do to achieve what André Luiz is sharing with us is to learn how to use our physical body more wisely so we can feel this ultimate love. Let us do one last exercise before we break down. Because words cannot suffice when we talk about love, but we can feel the difference in the brain. Dr. Srini Pillai at the General Massachusetts Hospital in Boston and others, neuroscientists of visualizations, they have proved to us, and there is an interview with him at Cardiac Radio. You can listen, cardiacradio.com, go there. There's a search bar and visualization. The whole interview, he shares with us one of the latest advancements of science, which is the validation of the technique visualization. When we visualize, he says, we're giving a precise address to the brain, GPS. That's why many people say, but I planned on this, and my life just derailed in such a way, I went to the opposite direction. But did you give the right address to the GPS? Yeah, I said I want to go to San Diego. But did you say exactly where? No, I ended up in Old Town, which is fascinating, but it's not where we are supposed to be, the Liberty Station Conference Center. So what did you miss? The number and the street. That's exactly how the brain works. We need to give precise addresses. So what do you want to feel? What kind of love? Unconditional love? So let's do an exercise of unconditional love, giving the precise address to the brain. Because according to science and the Spiritist science, or as Daniel Assiso used to say, the progressive body of knowledge, right? We got it. Fred was reminding me of the authorship of that statement. So we know that when we do this, it's going to happen. So let us close our eyes. Try. You don't have to. Well, let's feel it, because it's about love. Love we feel. We cannot actually impose anything. Close our eyes. Breathe deeply through the nose, inflating your abdomen. Breathe out slowly. Breathing in and out. As we breathe in and out, let us visualize a beautiful garden of friendship. In this location, we make friends. Observe the colors of the flowers and invite someone in your life whom you would like to reconcile. Embrace with your unconditional love. Observe this person coming towards you. And since you are commending and giving the full address of this location, you see the person smiling to you, accepting you, and you are seeing that person with true and deep acceptance. And it's so joyful that you embrace one another. No words, just feeling. The reasoning just accommodates the destiny that God has created for all of us. Love. In that embrace, let's breathe in and out. As we breathe in and out, we find peace and joy. We all change. We're supposed to become anew, breathing in and out. And one more time. In and out, we open our eyes, feeling that embrace and the unconditional love inside of all of us. That's an exercise in which we're giving love to our brains. Thank you very much. Thank you, the United States Spiritist Council.